Easter weekend, it has been. Shout out to everybody who made time to come through the office. What an incredibly uplifting and inspiring week right here in Hamilton Center. If you're new to the stream, my name is Matthew Green, and I'm the very proud NDP candidate seeking re-election right here in Hamilton Center. And I like to do this thing. It's kind of like political Russian roulette. It's a bit of a campaign update, a re-election campaign update for Canadians coast to coast to coast. In fact, people from around the world have tuned in at different times to engage in the discussion. I know that I can't bring all of you to Parliament, so I try to bring Parliament and the election system to you. This is Election 45, and my name is Matthew Green, and I am tuning in to 5 platforms right now. 5 platforms: YouTube, 2 Facebook sites, TikTok and Instagram, going across, broadcasting across all those platforms on a bit of a digital door knock. I know it's Easter weekend. Maybe some of you are tuned in to your phones right now, finding out what the vibe's like in Hamilton. You want to know how the NDP is doing across the country. This is your space for discussion. I'll likely be online for at least an hour answering questions on all of the platforms, talking to people, including people who don't always agree with me, but still talking to people across the country, hearing what they have to say. As I said, it is a lot like political Russian roulette. I'm okay with it. I talk to people that don't necessarily agree with me all the time. It's a part of democracy. We need it. It's an integral and important part of an election process where we go out and hear from Canadians from across all party lines to get a sense for what they want to see as the compelling vision for the future of the country. We've had a phenomenal time here in Hamilton Center. I got to say, I feel absolutely blessed with the support that we've had from across the country stepping up to support me, whether it's online virtually like we're doing right now, or whether we are having people show up in person. Certainly the donations have come in from across the country. I'm deeply grateful from that. Locally, there's been a ton of lawn signs going out to show the support. I know in Hamilton, that's an interesting indicator. Things feel kind of weird. I'm not going to lie. It feels like we're shadow boxing a little bit. So we can still do that, Linda. DM me your apartment building and we'll get there. We're doing the best we can to get to buildings across the city. In fact, we we go into spaces, we knock doors, and particularly today on a rainy day, maybe you go ahead and send me a DM and I will be there. As it starts to rain, we'll come and do the apartments. We're the only party really talking about renters when it comes to affordability. So we get it. Shout out to Emron428 on TikTok. We appreciate the folks on TikTok that are tuning in. People on Instagram, thank you for taking time to join the discussion. If you have questions and comments, please be sure to put them in the comment section. Shout out to Juliana, who's watching the lives while you're on a family walk. I appreciate that. Let's consider this a walk and talk. I'm meeting people where they're at, recognizing that the Easter holidays are a busy time for people, but it doesn't mean we can afford to stop engaging, right? We didn't pick this weekend. I would have preferred not to have an election on the National Day of Mourning for injured and killed workers on the job. That's the 28th of April, but that's what this government has done. It's put us into the time here. Lots of questions. Nate 540 on TikTok wants to talk about the carbon tax rebate. Shout out to my brother Ahmad Youssef. Uncle Ahmad, we appreciate you. We really do. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the question section. If you have comments, you can put them there. I am happy to take any questions from people logged on from across the country, from all parties, to have a discussion. I'm going over to Instagram now. If you see me looking down, it's because I'm going through all the different platforms. I'm cycling through to see where I can find the comments and questions. So Wateba says, a lot of my friends want to vote NDP in Hamilton Centre, but they're afraid of Pierre Poilievre, so they might vote Liberal. This is how the Liberals use fear and strategic voting. The Conservatives are in a distant third. The House of Commons does not require the Liberal Party to have every single seat across the country in a supermajority. In Hamilton Centre, there's no threat of losing to the Conservatives. That's a fact. People can vote their conscience. They don't have to vote out of fear. I know the Liberals would love to talk about strategic voting, but strategically, it always means vote Liberal no matter where they are, because this has always been an NDP seat. So it is the obvious, if it's objective, strategic vote right here is to vote for the incumbent. But we have a situation where people are terrified. I understand that. They're afraid. Strategic voting in Hamilton is an NDP vote. And you can let your friends know that the Conservative campaign is in a distant third. Even the Liberals not really campaigning. He's riding on the coattails of Mark Carney. And we're working our asses off here. Like we're putting in the work. In fact, if it comes down to a 50-50 split, which is what the national aggregator says, right? There's not been a local poll. We've been on the doors. We know what local people are saying. We have a quiet confidence in the hard work and determination of the hundreds of volunteers who've been involved in this campaign. That kind of outreach. I mean, we've never run a campaign like this in all of my years. So here we are. Shout out to EO, giving me a little love here, and the Conservatives that are engaging. This is the thing I love about TikTok algorithms. I always find myself in conservative spaces, but I welcome you to the discussion. I would encourage you to use like some kind of logic or facts or rational discussion. I'll engage with conservatives. But when you just like spam, which is fine, there's spam accounts on every platform, you're boosting my algorithm. So shout out to you for all the trolls who would like to do that. For the people who are afraid, you don't have to be in Hamilton Centre. You can vote your conscience. The difference between Mark Carney having 190 seats or 220 matters not, but it matters a great deal to have the NDP in the House of Commons. If we have two conservative parties taking 80% of the vote and no real opposition, Hamilton Centre and the working class are going to be in for a very rough ride. That's a fact. There needs to be opposition. There needs to be multiple parties in the Westminster system. This is not an American congressional race. This is not a presidential race. Mark Carney is not on the ballot in Hamilton Centre. Some guy from Mississauga is. And talk to your friends to go out and actually see this person, see who they are, and ask yourself, is this the person that you think will best represent the interests of Hamilton Centre? I don't believe he is. I don't believe he knows anything about Hamilton Centre. I don't believe he understands our struggles. I don't even think he knows how government works, to be quite honest. I've heard him speak before. He talks about filling potholes. I was a city councillor. I was the board of directors for the Ontario Good Roads Association. I know roads and I know potholes. It is not a federal responsibility. It would be laughable if it wasn't dangerous, but the fact is this absolute, political tourist could end up, in theory, representing Hamilton Centre, and then languish in the backbenches for the next 4 years to speak maybe 1 or 2 times a month, if he's lucky, and to not really engage in any meaningful ways. So here we are. We're working hard. We're working very, very hard. And somebody's asking me what my thoughts on Sarah Jama are. John from TikTok, it's well documented. I have solidarity with principles, not the party or people. And I believe that the party did Sarah Jama wrong. I believe that it was undemocratic, didn't represent the interests of Hamilton Centre, and was a decision made by leadership that shouldn't have been made. I've said that publicly. It's not news. It's not controversial. On the principle of what transpired, as somebody who was very close and inside to those discussions and conversations, I don't believe that they acted with integrity. So I continue to support Sarah. Sarah was my sister before I was a New Democrat. She'll be my sister long after she's not a New Democrat. I think part of the problem in our democracy is we treat it like a team sport that sometimes lacks accountability. I believe in democratic accountability. But if you followed that situation, you would know that the Provincial Council unanimously endorsed bringing her back in, and they didn't do that. So Canada Gun says that Hamilton workers are voting blue. It hasn't happened, my friend. People talk about it. Yeah, there's a couple of working class conservatives. I understand that. But the Conservatives have never mounted a meaningful campaign or result here in Hamilton Centre. Never happened. Do you know why? Because when workers have their backs against the wall, Conservatives are MIA. I've been on picket lines here for a decade, and I've never seen a Conservative once, not once, stand up for workers and working class. I see Conservatives want to pretend and do roll action live play like it's Halloween and put on a high vis vest, but they're corporate bootlickers. That's the fact. People might not agree with all my politics, but they have to look at the actions. They have to look at who's actually standing for workers and who stands against them. And it is true that in democracies, people vote against their self-interest. And it is true that some working class will vote against their self-interest here by voting for Pierre Poilievre, who is the most anti-worker MP in the House of Commons, or the Goldman Sachs Mark Carney. Those things can both be true. It's not irreconcilable. So John says that he assumes the ONDP are closely tied with the federal NDP. That is not true. We are in the same party, but in the same way that Canada is a federation, our party is a federation, which means each province is completely autonomous to do as they will. And we don't always agree on things. That's a fact. That is across the country. I've spoken out against policies that our provincial cousins have made. And I think we should be free to do that. I think we should be able to disagree in democracies, including within our own parties, including within the House of Commons. And more importantly, I think we should be able to cooperate. The fact that Conservatives would try to upend our democratic institution, diminish it, dismantle it by suggesting that cooperation is somehow undemocratic is a dangerous, slippery slope. Our parliamentary system requires three things out of parties. If you're in government, then you have to run the legislative agenda. If you're in opposition, you have three roles. You can be oppositional. You can oppose policy you don't agree with. You could be cooperative. You can agree with policies that you think are in the benefit of people. That happens all the time, by the way. Conservatives vote with liberals, liberals vote with conservatives, Bloc vote with liberals, NDP vote with Bloc, Green Party's in there. That's how democracy should work. And it shouldn't be derogatory to suggest that cooperation is undemocratic, but those who actually don't respect democracy, which is the far right, suggest that it's not, because they want to concentrate power. They want to move towards an authoritarian style, American style process that gives the minority the majority of the power. And as New Democrats, we're fighting tooth and nail to make sure that never happens. That's why we're in this fight right now, regardless of what happens on the 28th. We need to hold whoever's in government accountable. And if it's a supermajority, I think it's dangerous if it's a liberal supermajority or a conservative supermajority. So that's what we're up to. We're going back to the questions. Does the Liberal candidate even live in Hamilton? No, he does not. He travels here. He's a tourist from Mississauga in Toronto. I did a debate with him in Grays Road, Stony Creek, at a Bosnian mosque, and he kept talking about the community as though we were in Hamilton Centre. And I actually had to remind him that we were like 15 minutes away from Hamilton Centre. The guy has no understanding or context for Hamilton Centre. The people here, the city, doesn't even understand the geography. But alas, that's what we're working at. The Conservative is from St. Catharines. Young guy, probably wants to get a staff job in Ottawa, which is what a lot of my Conservative colleagues did when they started off. They went and put their name on ballots. They grinded it out. They did all the work to hope to get a staff job in Ottawa. It kind of seems like that's what he's doing right now. They're not really running a full campaign. So what do you think about the Conservatives and the PPC's push to privatize healthcare? Those are important questions, but you can't leave the Liberals out. If the Conservatives are the butcher block of public healthcare, then the Liberals are the scalpel. It's still a death by 1,000 cuts. It's slow. Under Dalton McGuinty and Kathleen Wynne, they refuse to invest in our hospitals and our healthcare, put us in the situation we're in. Doug Ford came in. He's going to finish the job. You look to the Conservative premiers that are in the prairies. Same thing there. And we have both Liberals and Conservative federal parties who refuse to use the Canada Health Act in the partnership in the way that it should have been and put conditions on outcomes for healthcare staying public. That is a big problem. So when you talk about privatization, you cannot uncouple it from liberal privatization, which is a death by 1,000 cuts, or conservative privatization, which is a butcher's block. Ultimately, both end up in the privatization. A question came in that says, what differentiates me from liberals? I could have ran as a liberal. I'm a new Democrat. The New Democratic Party is the closest proximity to my principles. If I wanted to run with no principles, no class analysis, if I wanted to run, to be in proximity to power rather than challenge it, I would have ran as a liberal. I'm a New Democrat. I also happen to be a democratic socialist. I believe that the symptoms that we're seeing in our social pressures, homelessness, the cost of food, the cartels in our economy that include banking, housing, telecom, privatized healthcare that we see in long-term care. The cartels that we have are ruining energy sector cartels, ruining this economy, exploiting people and completely leaving them out. And I think that there's only one party who will challenge corporate greed and will work to govern greed and distribute wealth to people who actually create wealth, which is the working class. When it comes to questions of foreign policy, there are very clear distinctions between us and everybody else. We take principled positions on foreign policy. I myself am anti-war. I'm anti-genocide. We have taken very strong and principled positions on Gaza and Palestine. We are unequivocal and unapologetic in condemning the Israeli government for its atrocities, holding them accountable in international law, and making sure that we support international law and that Canada can kind of be some semblance of an honest broker of peace and diplomacy. So those are the top lines for how I consider I am different than the Liberals. We stand in stark contrast on so many issues. And I recognize the public doesn't have the ability to follow all of it. So here we are. The Conservative put up a sign at the Scary Motel on King Street. It's because they don't know the context. When you drive around and you see all the used car dealerships and boarded up homes, you know that it's basically absentee landlords and slumlords and used car salespeople who are supporting the Conservatives here in Hamilton. And then there's the rest of us. That's kind of how it breaks down here. They don't really have real support in Hamilton. So there are lots of well-intentioned people who are terrified of Pierre Poilievre. And there's been an overcorrection and I think a lack of scrutiny on Mark Carney. But we're not in a presidential race. Neither Pierre Poilievre nor Mark Carney are on the ballot here in Hamilton Center. But I am. And I'm committed to continue to serve this community. And in order to do that, we need people supporting us to get out the vote on election day. I don't know what's going to happen. We can win by 5 votes, 50, 500, or 5,000. I don't care. But what I do know is we're going to fight for every single vote. We're going to continue to do this democracy the way that it should be, door to door, street to street, neighborhood to neighborhood, local representation, going to Ottawa to fight for the community, not some partisan party hack, some insider who's parachuted into Hamilton, to try to use it as a stepping stone so they can visit here on the weekends, take a photo, and then go back to Ottawa. That is the antithesis of how our system should work. Sarah Perry, I appreciate you, family. Thanks for the shout out on Facebook. I'm going back and forth between Instagram and TikTok. NDPs are taking their party to support the liberal communist regime. J-Rod on TikTok. It is insulting to me when the far right, without any clear education on political ideology, calls the Liberal Party communist or socialist. The Liberal Party is not communist or socialist. The Liberal Party is a right-wing, center-right party that is further right under Mark Carney, and the Conservative Party is a far-right party. Far right. There are many Conservatives in Ontario who are happy and comfortable in the Liberal caucus right now because under Mark Carney, they're going to get conservatism. I'm a socialist, a true socialist, and I can engage with you in a debate on the political economy, on fairness, on the value of your work, on your estrangement from your job, on how the interest rates gut the working class with the yo-yo economics of the central banks, on how we're being screwed by the fractional reserve system to basically dislodge us from the value that we create in the economy. I could talk about all those things, but it would require for you to have a basic understanding of the terms that you're using. So if you're on TikTok and you don't know the difference between a liberal and a conservative, my friend, Google is free. Use it. Educate yourself. I'm not saying this to denigrate you. I'm not saying this to embarrass you on TikTok. What I'm saying is that it's critically important for you to understand your own material condition so you can start to see how there's a contradiction between what the far right is feeding you and what's actually going to be putting food on your plate. What's actually going to distribute the economy in your favor. What's actually going to give you democracy, not just in your workplace, but in the economy. Those are like central foundational understandings that are required in order for you to be an informed voter. That's why I do Parliament to the People. I do it because I want to bring people closer to the process of government, and I'm happy to be challenged by it, but it has to be intelligent discourse. It has to be informed in some basis of facts. If it's just trolls, like you're feeding my algorithm, fine, we'll get more views. But I would much prefer to have conservatives in the far right engage in a way that allows a real conversation to happen. NDP and liberals are extreme leftists, or whatever. We can call each other names all day. The liberals are not extreme leftists. There's no extreme leftists in Canada, my friend. Not like even the Communist Party, by contrast to other communist parties around the world, wouldn't be considered extreme leftists. Extreme leftists in Canada is like universal health care, affordable housing, caps on food, making sure the corporations don't completely pillage and pick our pockets. That's considered the far left in Canada, and there's nothing extreme about that. Nothing. What else do we got? Back to TikTok. We're back here. You know you're doing well because the trolls tune into your live streams. I'm here for it. I am here to talk to everybody. I think part of the failure that we have on the left and maybe within our party is that we're not doing enough of this. And I imagine a future for our party where this is exactly where we are. We're meeting people where they're at. We're meeting people on picket lines. We're meeting people online. We're meeting people in our neighborhoods and our churches and mosques and faith groups. We're meeting people. I don't even care. Your T-ball leagues, flag football. I don't care. We need to start having real discussions about the future of this country. We're having a values conversation in this country. And right now, Canadians have like resoundingly rejected the vision of the far right, the hatred and the fear and the isolation that it entails, except the liberals they're basically introducing another type of fear, right? Which in my estimation diminishes our democracy. It doesn't allow for real debate, and it shields people from accountability and scrutiny. I believe that's what needs to happen here. What do we got? Trying to find comments here. How about the increase of the 11% annual raise for MPs, keeping them further out of touch with us? This is actually something that I brought up. This is a question. I don't think we should have had raises, especially during COVID. And I would agree. I would agree that MPs are vastly out of touch. The political class is out of touch with the working class. There's no arguments there. It's not defensible. I would love to see the working class get 11% wages right across the board in order to keep up with inflation. But I'd also like to see monetary systems and economic systems that don't allow corporations to price gouge in the first place. I would like to see a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. I'd like to see, the exploitation of the working class end. And I'd like to see the working class keep the wealth that they create. In other words, not taxing people on their income, but taxing them on their accumulated and hoarded wealth. That's what I'd like to see. So I don't disagree with you. It is out of touch. Myself, I donate the raises that I receive every year. But I would agree that it's not we're at a place where it is not in touch with. We want to have quality people. We want to attract people who would otherwise be in executive leadership and in leadership positions in the private sector. We want smart and intelligent people, professionals, people who are educated. We want, across even the farmers. Like we need people, working class folks. But we're not getting that. We're not getting that right now. So we're going back to this. What else do we have? It says, I have a question. Do you support Liberals' deal with Lockheed Martin to purchase 88 F-35 jets? You can actually this is a good question on TikTok. I don't, because I'm anti-war. I also don't agree with the expenditures that they have on the warships. I know that it's going to Canadian builds, but I don't see that money, the $80 billion that they're using for 15 warships, I don't see that as a great expenditure of our resources when we have a national housing crisis, a national healthcare crisis, where people are languishing. I would rather not have Canada's role as being a lapdog for American foreign policy to allow American military industrial complex to basically pilfer our tax dollars. I'd rather that not be the case. So Liberals and Conservatives, they lock these deals in legal ways that make it inextricably almost impossible to get out of. I don't know what the legal deals are on that, but I think if I'm correct, a helmet for a single fighter jet is like $400,000. $400,000. And yet we have people from Sudbury who have to take flights in to Toronto just to get chemo. That's a problem for me. Budgets are a value conversation. And that's what we're having right now. JC, you can ask your question again. Sorry, I missed it. I'm going back and forth between Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Not a lot of folks tuned into YouTube because YouTube is relatively new. Oh, shout out to you, Peggy Russell, watching on YouTube. I appreciate that. I've just started live streaming to YouTube. It's one of the missing links. I wish I had done it much earlier, but I haven't. So if you're online, you have questions, feel free to do that. Rodrigo Stack said we could have been official opposition if Singh called for an election last year. Yeah, I'm not for a conservative supermajority. I'm not. And that's what would have happened last year. So I'm okay with it. Look, I ran as a New Democrat knowing that I, likely wouldn't be in cabinet or form government. And here's what people need to know about me personally. Being a member of parliament does not make me who I am. The way that I'm free to speak my morals and to have my principles is I'm okay to lose. Nothing's going to change for me on April 29th, one way or another. I'm going to continue to be the man, the father, the partner or spouse that I am, the friend, the community activist that I am. Being a member of parliament is a title. People try to shame me because of what's happening nationally. It's a democracy. People are going to go the way they go. I don't control that. I wouldn't try to. I don't feel pressured by it either. All we can do is outwork people locally. I know this in my heart. This is the best campaign I've ever been in. Our people are the best in the country, committed to ensuring working class values continue to get represented in Hamilton. And if it happens to be the case, that's not the case. We're still going to continue to work on the 29th. I don't go away. I live here, remember? I live in Hamilton. All the right-wing cons, some of the fascists that are here too, the neo-Nazis and everybody else who think that they're licking their lips because maybe I might not be an MP, does not matter. I'll still be an anti-fascist here in Hamilton. Straight up. That's the beauty of all of this. We have nothing to lose. It's just a title. It's just a job. It doesn't change who I am. So there's nothing about the pension. That's bullshit. I wish you would have better information, Rodrigo. And here's the thing about pensions. I wish everybody had good pensions, by the way. Our pensions aren't the pensions that people think it is. Pierre Poilievre has one of the best pensions in the country. Nobody talks about that shit. There's a clear contradiction when people bring up Jagmeet's pension. It's ridiculous. It really is. We want for others what we have for ourselves. The difference between Jagmeet and Pierre Poilievre is Pierre Poilievre has had dental care since he was 31. He's had a gold-plated pension since he was 31. He's had an incredible salary since he was like 26. but he votes against pensions, dental care, pharmacare, benefits, good wages for everybody else. If you're online right now, you're on TikTok and you're in the right wing, and you're sitting here talking about us having pensions and not fighting against the fact that the conservative leader fights against you having pensions and you having dental care and you having pharmacare, then I can't understand the contradiction for you. I could tell you about it, but I can't understand it for you. You need to understand that for yourself. You are being had and you are being lied to. That's what the right-wing populism is doing. By a cadre of inside conservatives who have grown up in the party, who have never held private sector jobs, who've never had to earn their fair keep, who voted against all the things that they have. I don't begrudge people having a pension. I want everybody to have a pension. I want everybody to have dental care and pharmacare. Woo, you got me fired up. Here it is, here it is, here it is. I appreciate you, Dalio. No, we don't need a lib from Mississauga. We're running it here. People say it is the final week. It's wild that he's on here right now. We have teams that are out there. And if I can have a digital town hall and talk to 40 or 50 people, which is what I do across platforms, that's what we do. I do it once a day, sometimes twice a day, or at least try to. We spent all weekend knocking on doors. If people don't understand the digital nature of campaigns, you have to ask yourself why you're watching me right now. We've raised a tremendous amount of money online, and we've had dozens of volunteers come in from these live streams. Which brings me to my next point. Thank you for that reminder. We need right now for people that are out there wanting to understand how they can help us out. It is the last day of advanced poll. We would love for you to get out and vote. And then once you voted, we would love for you to sign up for us on E-Day. We've had hundreds of volunteers, but we're going to need hundreds more on the 28th to be able to pull our vote. We have had record numbers of voter contacts, marks, IDs, people in the community who support us. Our job from now until the 28th is just to identify, engage them, and get them to the polls. That is our work. We need you. So check the ticker below. Help us build a movement that is rooted in solidarity. Visit matthewgreen.ca, and do be sure to come in and check us out. Rodrigo Stacks asks, why fascists though? How are they? We have neo-Nazis in Hamilton, Rodrigo. Straight up fascists, neo-Nazis, people who are seeking political violence for a far-right agenda. I'm not talking about calling people fascists who disagree with me. I'm not saying all conservatives are fascists. I'm just saying all fascists happen to be conservative, and we have a lot of them right here in Hamilton. We've seen them on the doors. We know where they live by address. They're here. It'd be a mistake to think they're not. You might not come across them, but that's fine. So what else do we got? Shout out to you, Marcy. Our volunteers are amazing. They're passionate. They reach out. So here we are. I'm going back to Instagram. I can't vote, but all I know is the electoral system needs to go, so people don't worry. Agreed with that. Is that Peggy? No, that's not Peggy McGinnis. That's somebody else. I try to find your little profile picture, but it's small. Corey, shout out to you, my friend. And running in the West End of Toronto, food insecurity is the biggest insecurity in my riding. We can appreciate that. Shout out to the people who are logging on Instagram. I appreciate the feedback. What's your plan to end the food insecurity crisis affecting my riding and yours? So the food insecurity crisis is a whole continuum of the supply chain. We've allowed far too many big corporate farms, big corporations taking over family farms. There's only a handful of multinationals that do our food processing. We've allowed a cartel to take over our groceries. We need antitrust laws and nationalization of our food security to ensure that it's not being shipped up, and exploited by foreign national corporations. And we have to look at it right from farm all the way to the grocery store. We need to support family farms and family farmers so they don't get taken over by pernicious and predatory big corporations. We need to break up the cartels in the factories. We need to ensure that they're, providing good wages and good union jobs with benefits. And we need to break up the grocery cartels. That's for sure. What do we got here? Looking at more comments. I want to thank you for all the work, community in Beasley. Shout out to you, Jenny. We need you. If you're logging in from Hamilton, I don't even care if you're in Hamilton Center, if you're from anywhere in Hamilton, we need you in the movement for this final stretch. For the Go TV, the Get Out the Vote, we're going to have over 200 volunteers. We're getting close, but we need you to sign up and take a shift. If you can lend us one day and you're in the Hamilton area to help us get out the vote, that would mean a tremendous amount to us. That would mean a great deal. So that's what we need to do. Do I support safe injection sites near schools? There's only supervised injection sites. They're safer because people don't die. I think there's already radial separations with supervised injection sites based on the municipal bylaws. I know because I was on city council when a lot of those bylaws came through. And I believe that we need to have supervised injection sites to save lives. I believe in harm reduction. Right now, we have injection sites all across the city, and the harder that Doug Ford made it for people to access harm reduction, the more he pushed it illicitly and unsafely out in to our communities. We've done alleyway cleanups, park cleanups, cleanups around trails, in communities, playgrounds. We know that the drug use is going to continue, and it's our position that harm reduction in health environments that are supervised are safer, not just for the drug user, but for the community. I hope that answers your question, G. We might disagree, but that's where I'm at. What does it say? Trying to follow up. Someone says they're going to knock doors tomorrow. We appreciate that. We do. Get rid of the policies on our farmers. I don't know exactly what that means on TikTok, but feel free. Jenny says we helped access CERB when it would not cover your mad leave and you're rooting for me. I appreciate that. We do need the support. We do need people here in Hamilton helping us out this week. You could visit matthewgreen.ca/volunteer, and we're going to get you into the Go TV, Get Out the Vote strategy for Election Day on the 28th. It is going to be crucial. I don't know what's going to happen on the 28th. I don't know. My confidence comes from the hard work and our commitment to the community. But this is democracy, and the voters are always right. So it's going to be what it's going to be. But what I do know is we're going to continue to outwork everybody day by day, door by door, vote by vote. That's how we do it. Might be 5 votes, might be 50, might be 500. I don't know. But we are having an amazing time. We're having fun. We're meeting great people, and we are energized. Okay, I see that. I appreciate you, Jenny, for logging on prior to that, and I appreciate you for being a part of the democratic process. I'm trying to keep up with the questions. We got some questions from Instagram and Facebook. We have Lionel who says, oh, shout out for you. I don't speak French. I don't have super ambitions when it comes to leadership. What I'm interested in is the operational aspects and the democracy of our party, and using grassroots power to build over the next 4 years, to rebuild, is going to be my project no matter what. So going to vote today. I'm in Hamilton Center. Good luck. Shout out to you, Lori. It's been a while. I appreciate you. Get out there and vote. We would love to have people join us down the stretch. That would be great. We do appreciate that. I am missing some people on TikTok, and I apologize. I'm doing the best. Somebody's talking about racial profiling and carding. Yes, I stand by that. I think racism in policing is bad. There, I said it. I think identifying people who are not in any way connected to crimes simply because you don't think they look in place in their community is racism, and it's wrong. And that's not going to change. For me, that's not going to change. So that is what it is, my friend. That's a long held position And it's one that's not going to change. So if you're on TikTok and you're upset that I fought against anti-black racism and policing, you weren't going to vote for me anyways, fam. Don't think I'm stupid. I'm not stupid. I know who you are. So what else do we got? We got more cops on the internet. I'm not interested in that. So we'll just go to the next question. What time is it? 1:12. We've been on for about an hour, 40 minutes actually, and we appreciate you. Thank you so much for engaging. We're having a time. Shout out to Joel Harden in Ottawa. I really do hope that Joel makes it. You know, there's some incredible New Democrats across the country, and this is what I know to be true. By electing more New Democrats, more Canadians are served. That's just a fact. Parliament is better with us in the House of Commons. Canadians are going to make their decision. They're going to decide. But having a Liberal supermajority is not going to be good for democracy. Reducing our democracy to two parties is not going to be good for democracy. You want to see what happened in the States with a two-party system? Then Mark Carney will be the precursor to whatever's next. You think Pierre Poilievre is bad now? After 4 years of a supermajority Mark Carney, the working class is going to continue to feel estranged and left out of the economy, and there's going to be a harder right swing. It is going to happen. We need balance. We need balance and diversity within our democracy. So with those words, if you have time, we would love for you to join us, matthewgreen.ca, to volunteer for Election Day, to donate, to get a lawn sign, whatever it is. Thanks for tuning in. You all have been awesome. This is a session of Parliament to the People. We do appreciate you. Help us build a movement. Make sure that you get out there and vote today if you can at the advanced polls. We appreciate you. And in the meantime, Penny Stock says, I'm not answering your questions. I'll go back. I missed them. Is $30 a week. Nothing to, what is this? Yeah, sorry. You're not really offering much to the discussion. So I'm going to keep it moving. Peace.